Hey there, I want to talk to you guys today about how to start a farm on the cheap. I know a lot of you out there are either looking to get into farming or making the jump from like homesteading to farming. And so I want to give you a lot of advice here. And this is not going to be a how to grow, how to start your farm video and those sorts of things. I've done lots of those. I want to talk about the business side of it, because for us to put a dent in the food system, for us to have sustainable and regenerative farms and grow food for our local community, we can't talk about any of that stuff unless we have sustainable businesses. If our farms aren't making money from year to year, then they won't exist in a few years. So with my experience over the last 4 years and all the stuff I've had to overcome to get my farm business up and running, I want to share some of those things with you. And I don't want to get into sort of a disclaimer here, like specific numbers, because I think they can be misleading because everyone's situations are very different. But what I want to go through is some guidelines and some ways to think about it, because I think that's a lot more powerful and for you guys with your businesses, so that you really understand your businesses. And those are the kinds of things I want to get into. But I think there's a lot of ways to approach this. And I think there's some ways that are very smart and calculated and allow you to get into this for very little startup capital. First thing I want to mention is that I recommend that you don't take on debt to start a farm. I think it's an easy way to get a business started is to borrow some money, but I don't think that's a great idea, especially if you've never farmed before. Now, if you have a farm business that is growing quickly and you need the money to expand your business and it's already profitable, then I think it can make sense in some situations to borrow money. But I think that most of the time, hard work, your enthusiasm, and being resourceful can get you to start your farm business on the cheap. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Now, when you're looking to plan your farm business, it's important to write a business plan. Now, I don't mean like a formal business plan, and don't get hung up on the way it looks. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be, any form that makes sense for you. You're not going to necessarily be showing this to anybody because you're not trying to get investors. You're not trying to, attract people to give you money and show a bank and those kinds of things. But what you need to do is figure out how to make your farm profitable. And that's really what's important. So the writing of the business plan, people always ask me about business plans, and I say, the writing of the business plan is the important thing. It's not the business plan itself. It's the process you go through in writing the business plan, because I've either started or tried to start several businesses in the past, and often in that process of working through the details and the financials, that's when you figure out if your business even has a chance of working. And sometimes it's worth the effort to go through that, because you might realize your farm or your business may not be profitable. So I highly recommend you put the time in thinking about that. All right, so part of your homework, that's right, I'm giving you guys homework. This is how we figure this stuff out, is to figure out your sales strategy and how you're gonna market your products. I get a lot of messages from people that are in areas that say, hey Josh, I can't sell my products for this much, I can't make it profitable. So either you have to grow different things, or maybe your business may not work for where you live, or you might have to travel a little bit further to sell your products. So figure out your marketing and sales strategy. Don't overlook that. One of the ways, or the big way, that small farms are successful businesses is that we're direct marketing. We're selling directly to our customers, and that's how we're making enough money to make this work. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about initial investments. And I hate to throw out numbers, but I honestly think you can start a small part-time farm for under $10,000. And I know for some of you that's a lot of money. For some of you it's not a lot of money. Either way, I highly recommend that you invest in caterpillar tunnels and also in your soil. I think those are the best investments that you could possibly have. Now, why caterpillar tunnels? I know a lot of you guys are thinking that they're mainly for season extension. Well, I did a whole video about that, and I'll leave that down below. But the main thing is you can control more, you get more consistent yields, more consistent production year-round, and you have a lot more control, and you have, just more successful crops. So on top of those investments, so by soil, I mean, bringing in really high-quality compost, or spending the time with cover cropping and making your own compost and those sorts of things. But investing in your soil is one of the best investments you possibly can have, because that's going to help you year after year after year. And the nice thing about the tunnels is that it protects your soil, and when it rains really hard, you don't lose your soil and all those kinds of things. So I highly recommend them. I have the Gothic Pro tunnels from Farmer's Friend. I'll leave a link down below for that. This video is not sponsored by Farmer's Friend, but they're really inexpensive, and they're a great way to get started. On top of that, there's some tools you'll need. I did a video about tools. I'll leave that down below. I'll leave all the videos down below for everything related to this video. You'll need a wash station. Again, I'll leave a link down below for my original wash station video. And basically you can get rolling. And I think the big thing is that you start with something that's successful, that is long-term, and you can grow with it. So let's talk about how to start small and work part-time. So I want to take a dive into part-time farming, and I think it's really important and a big part of what's worked for me and also what could work for you as you get into farming and expand your business. I did a whole video about part-time farming, but essentially there's this whole stigma about being a full-time farmer, going all in, working like 80 hours a week, trying to kill yourself, making it work. And I don't have that, I don't take on that, approach. So to me, it's whatever works for you. And so as you guys know, I'm a part-time farmer. I have 2 tunnels. I'm adding on a 3rd one this fall and growing the business slowly and thoughtfully. Now, if you start part-time, there's a bunch of advantages. One is that if you have a job or your partner has a job, that way you can not interrupt your income at all and start working on the farming on the side. Also, all of the money that you take in from the farm is not something that you're counting on for, your family's income. You already have another income. So you can take all that money, pay back yourself for the things that you bought to start the farm, or take that money and reinvest it into the farm for future years. And so that's a great way to do it, to sort of bankroll or bootstrap your own farm. I think that's a really great way. The other thing is that when you start with part-time farming, you'll realize a couple things. You'll see if you like it or not, because we all have this idea, as an entrepreneur, when you start a business that you're gonna love it, but you may not love it once you get into it. And by starting part-time and on a smaller scale, there's less of an investment, less of a risk, and those sorts of things. So if you do get into it and you really love it and you want to expand, well, you're ready to do that and you have the infrastructure in place. The other thing is that you're not going to be able to grow nearly what you think you're going to be able to grow in the first year or 2. You have to learn how to do this. And so even if you're a homesteader and you've done some gardening, this is very different growing on scale. So there's that whole part of it, and the production planning and yields and all those kinds of things need to get dialed in, so they take a while. So expect about like a third of what you think you should be able to get in your first year. And I'm in my 4th season now, and I'm still learning and still trying to get better at it. So keep that in mind. But as you start part-time, take all that money, pay yourself back for what you've already invested in, and then use that money in the first year or 2 years, reinvest, buy a couple more tunnels, buy some more compost, build out the farm, and then maybe you can switch to full-time and not have that financial demand on your family by, putting it solely in the farm, because that can be very stressful. When you have a business that you're relying on for your family to, all of your financial needs for your family, if that's not doing well, that's very stressful, and it makes your decisions a lot harder on the farm. So if you can start the farm without that pressure, it'll be a lot easier. Another thing that you guys might have questions about is land access. And most of you know that I live on a 2-acre lot in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina, and this is just where I live. But even with my 3rd tunnel, I'm gonna be under 1/8 of an acre, and that's super small. And so I don't think it's that hard in a lot of areas to find a 1/4 or 1/2 an acre. And if you don't have access to land, there are plenty of ways you can get creative. You can use someone else's land, you can rent it, you can lease it. Maybe you can make out some sort of bartering arrangement where you trade them vegetables. Maybe someone has a corner of their field or their backyard or something that they're not using and they'd like you to just take care of it for them. If you really are motivated, you can definitely find ways to do this. Don't let land access be the problem for you. And if you start with some of the basic things without building a ton of infrastructure, like, as I said, those caterpillar tunnels, those are not permanent. You can move those to your next farm. So by starting somewhere else, you can learn how to grow, you can build your customer base, you can learn how to market and sell, and grow your business. And then maybe you can either buy a new piece of property or expand your farm or those kinds of things. So keep that in mind. Keep records of what you're growing and what you're selling. That'll help you determine your further steps with your business. I'm not great about keeping records, but I just want to try to convince you to be better at it. And I just wanted to give you a bunch of homework, because really what you need to do is figure out if this works for yourself and your family. So keep all these things in mind as you're developing your farming strategy, your farm business strategy. And there's a lot of things to think through, but be thoughtful about it. Don't just jump all in. All of us want to be farming, growing food, but for us, as I said, to be having sustainable farms, we need to have sustainable businesses. So keep all this stuff in mind. Do your research, do your homework. Think about starting small and part-time, reinvesting back into the farm as you grow and as you need to grow. You don't always have to expand as quickly as possible, and we can have a lot of great farms out there. So hopefully some good food for thought, some things for you to think about. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next one.